I think that this is really the space where people must pay a lot of attention to when you want to take AI and make it work in a sense where it is making decisions, not just telling you some insights and so on, right?
Hello and welcome back to our latest episode of FUMO, Future of Money podcast. So don't get FOMO, get FUMO. This episode is brought to you as ever by our friends at CFT, our producers, XVC Tech, our sponsors, and MENA FinTech Association, our community partner. Delighted to have Shonali with us as our guest this week. Shonali, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're zooming in from Singapore today.
I am. Thank you for having me here. It's quite a pleasure as well as a privilege. Really happy to be here today. A little bit about myself. Okay, so I think I like to see my life in three parts. I started my career as an academic. I
Mhm,
was a professor at Monash University in Melbourne, in Australia, teaching computer science, doing research in computer science for many years. And then
mhm.
I moved to Singapore about 10 years ago, and I joined an organization called the Agency for Science, Technology and Research. This is the Singapore government's national R&D agency. And it's a pretty fantastic ecosystem. A-Star has like, I don't know, 4,000 scientists or more than that from 60 different countries. Singapore commits significant funding to its, national R&D program. So it was very exciting. I came on board as the head of the data analytics research department there at the Institute for Infocom Research. And that was a very exciting time for me because previously I'd been an academic doing all the things that academics do, teach, research, supervise students. But this was a journey where A-Star focused a lot on industry engagement or taking research and innovation to industry partners, right? So those were the very exciting, heady days where data analytics was very new and very hot. And we probably did some of the most sort of early, or I would even say pioneering work in data analytics R&D in Singapore. We had, multiple joint labs, collaboration labs with organizations like DBS Bank, with McLaren, with, NEC, and so on. So it was very exciting. We looked at how data analytics and machine learning could make a difference to, financial services, to manufacturing, to healthcare, transportation, and so many different areas. And I spent about 5 years there, and it was a very exciting time. Around 2016, a few of us from the research institute decided to take a leap of faith and leave the comforts of government R&D and set up a company to basically look at taking AI and machine learning into not just showing the power of AI and machine learning, but actually getting it to work in the real world. We had to pick a vertical because we couldn't do everything, so we chose financial services. And eventually, this company, IDA Technologies, sort of focused more and more on health insurance. So that became our key area. We developed a product called Smart Claims, which is an AI-driven health claims processing technology. And today, this is widely used by many of the large insurers in Singapore. And last year, we got acquired. So we were acquired by, yes, thank you. It's great to make a good exit. We were acquired by a company called Amplify Health. Amplify Health is a 75% AIA-owned, joint venture that AIA, Asia's largest insurer, set up. So AIA Singapore had been one of our customers, and so it was really good to, get their support and get acquired. And now we are basically integrating our technology, our teams into Amplify Health. And that's where I am. So that's my journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So a few iterations. I mean, there was academia, then the government-sponsored research institute, and then the jump into entrepreneurship and building a company. And for
Yes,
today's podcast, we're going to focus in on particularly that part. And
yes,
obviously, that couldn't have happened without the first two parts, but we're going to focus on the third part. After all, it's in the name, CFTE, entrepreneurship. So we're going to zoom in on that and run the audience through the thought process, the motivations, how it emerged. How was, you and your gang, is it one day you're sitting around, at lunch or having some beers and you go, right, over tea, you decide I'm going to go and set up a company? Or what makes you, as you said, it's a comfortable life, and not just a comfortable life. In Singapore, if you don't, I hope I'm not misspeaking, but relative to other government-sponsored organizations, it's not a bad financial life, let's put it that way.
No, it's
Singapore is
very
quite
good.
generous when it comes to government and academia. So
Yes.
what made you make the leap?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said that while we want to focus on the entrepreneurship, it's the other parts do contribute.
Yeah.
The process of doing these multiple joint labs and collaborations with organizations that I mentioned, all these banks, insurance companies. We worked with a lot of people. We had projects even with Boeing and Rolls-Royce and so on. So the work that we did showed us that AI and machine learning can actually make a difference to organizations, and that the power of this technology was quite phenomenal. We could really see that, like, for instance, from our industry partners were very real. They were the problems that they were facing. And for some of these problems, AI and machine learning really could address these challenges. So we saw this time and again. But of course, in a government R&D or any kind of R&D institution, you can only show the power of research. You cannot actually take the research and make a product out of it and run it 24/7 with support, maintenance, and all of those things that go with productizing the technology. So I think the inspiration came from seeing what we could do with this technology, and a few of us then decided that, and it's also timing, I should say, because at that time there were so many people starting up AI companies. AI was becoming a buzzword. 2016, 2017. 2016 was also a third factor, was that the Monetary Authority of Singapore was having a lot of publicity around the inaugural FinTech Festival of Singapore.
Oh,
and
wow.
They had a global accelerator.
Sorry to interrupt you, Shonali. 2016.
Yes, 2016.
Okay.
So 2016 was when the inaugural FinTech Festival was happening. There was a lot of publicity around that. And MAS had released a list of 100 problem statements from the financial services industry. And they had a global accelerator that they were running, inviting startups to present innovative solutions to these problems. So, we just picked one of those problems and presented a very, very rudimentary proof of concept, because we barely had set up the company. We were very startup at that time. But we ended up winning that accelerator. We were one of the three. I mean, we made it to the top 20, and then we ended up becoming one of the three winners. And there was a lot of publicity, and we had a little booth at the FinTech Festival. And it was the next day, because of the publicity, almost everybody came round to have a chat with us. And that really was where it all started.
And for the audience who may not be familiar with your company, just give us the TLDR and a bit more than a TLDR about what the product is and how it works and the relevance of financial services or insurance specifically.
Absolutely. So I must tell you that we kind of didn't really land. I mean, we didn't follow the dictated correct path of how people must do startups. When we left our familiar world of R&D, we knew that we could do machine learning very well. That was our capability. And we knew we can solve some real world problems. But we had not really narrowed in on a perfect product market fit at that time. We just participated in the accelerator. And we did not even pick the problem that eventually became the product that we built. We just picked one thing, and we ended up doing that well. But along the way, one of our, in fact, the first POC that we got from from a client was Prudential. And Prudential came to us with this problem statement of health claims, saying, can AI and machine learning actually help to expedite the process of, making a decision on a health claim? In Singapore, typically this process would take about 7 to 10 days, give or take. So you submit your claim, and for the insurer to process this claim and for the policyholder to get their money back or even a decision on it would take about 7 to 10 days. So we started working, in fact, with Prudential first up, and we could see that, this technology could really, help in making these decisions quite well. So, of course, those were the early days, and then we significantly enhanced this product, and it became what we call smart claims. So smart claims basically, for most of our customers, what it does is that given a health claim, it can help the insurer return the decision to the customer in a matter of minutes, and payment can happen within a matter of hours, maybe in the same day, typically. So the whole process, which used to take 7 to 10 days, has become something very seamless. And again, I want to caveat this by saying it's not for all customers, but about 60, 70, 50 to 70% of customers can have this expedited process. The more complex claims are, of course, passed over for human experts to then look at and, make the final assessment. So the AI would just do a preliminary assessment, but would then send it for review. So that's really the product that we have.
Awesome. Let's dig into a little bit more detail, the building of the business. And I want to bring my partner in crime, Gaurav, to question you about the entrepreneurship and business building aspects. Over to you, Gaurav.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to really have you here with us. I think the story is, I think we're just getting started to really understand the next part of the story, which is your personal journey as an entrepreneur. And that's something I want to focus on a little bit, because going from academia into entrepreneurship, into business, into success is not how, if you look at most exit stories in the technology space for the last 5 years, it's usually people who are repeat winners, or people who club themselves along with previous winners in different spaces from either consultancy houses, but not necessarily always academia. Academia usually sits with medicine or with other areas of think tanks. So can we talk about your personal journey, becoming an entrepreneur? How hard was it? How easy was it? Was it simpler because Singapore as an ecosystem is extremely well defined and resourceful for this? Did it make no difference at all to your personal journey because it was your first time building a business and navigating not only the personal relationships with what was becoming your team or becoming the validation for your customers for revenue? Love to hear this part from you. Love to hear more about it.
Actually, it was not easy at all. I'm not going to sugarcoat this.
Well, you made it sound very easy when you were talking to Ron and Shonali. That's why I'm asking you this question, because you made it sound so simple.
Well, I did tell you what happened, but the journey after we started was a tough one. I think as a scientist, you see the world very differently. So I think the first thing for me, I learned a lot along the way. And in some ways, I think I'm also not the same person I was before I started this journey. I think it's a journey which changes you fundamentally as well, to be honest. I think firstly, as an academic or a researcher or an innovator of any kind, you have these exciting problems that you solve, and you think that all exciting problems and good ideas are good business, right? But then you realize that not all ideas are good business. So when we started the company, we forayed into banking, We also, I mean, insurance happened, but we were also straddling, trying to, solve problems in banking and so on. And while we could solve it, what we realized was that as a startup, the kind of resources that you have, whatever investment you raised, the size of your team, it becomes very hard to straddle too many lines of business. So that was one of the things that we learned, because as a researcher, you really are excited and drawn to all the problems that someone comes and tells you, and you think, oh, I can solve that. But that doesn't quite work like that, right? So that was one of the learnings. The second is that I use this analogy of a car all the time, because most of the time as an academic or a scientist or researcher, you really focus on building the engine, because that is the exciting part. You want the best engine. But then, if you want to sell this, the engine alone is not enough. The customer needs a seat to sit on. They need a steering wheel, a gearbox. They need everything. No, they need air conditioning. So you also have to build a lot of engineering around it. Basically the user interfaces, the robustness, technology that will work repetitively, quality assurance, testing, and all of those things, which you're not trained to think too much about. So really had to learn a lot of those things along the way. The last thing was, I think, even business model. I was very fortunate. It was not me by myself. I must give a lot of credit to my co-founders and my team. I had a CEO who was also my executive director at the Research Institute. He was a lot more experienced than I was at doing this kind of thing. So he could navigate fundraising and contracts and all those things, and let me focus on technology development and product development. So I think that really helped. So having a really good partnership is very important. Yeah.
But that in itself is a big part of the journey, right? Delegating, letting somebody else take control and aspects of the project that you realize you perhaps don't have the best value to execution to monetization personally, right? So you get out of your own way to allow the business to really flourish, which is very important. As that's why not all businesses succeed, because as you rightly said, you try and do so many things. And I love cars, and Ronak knows this. So one story that speaks so close to this journey is a Swedish car manufacturer called Koenigsegg. And in your spare time, whenever you look at them, exactly what you've said is exactly what they've done. It's a beautiful story. But
I will definitely
you've not only, yes, please, you'll really enjoy it. But not only have you managed to build a successful business, another thing which you made sound so simple is you've exited. And not just an exit, but a synergistic exit. This wasn't a pure monetary exit. And just extending that a little bit more, that's also not a simple task to do. There are so many companies where I've been lucky or unlucky to be part of an M&A process as an investor or an advisor or a friend helping another entrepreneur. And it's never an easy fit. It's not a jigsaw puzzle that fits. There's a lot of reworking of these pieces to understand how they really fit to produce a result which is symbiotic and produces accelerated results. So can you tell us about that journey as well? In your experience repertoire, which is already large enough, how has that been for the exit opportunity and the synergistic opportunity? How have you dealt with that experience, and what did you find on that journey?
This is also a fantastic question here. When I look back, I think one of the things that really helped the exit, and I'm the thing that I'm really, really proud of actually in all of this is that even today, all our customers say wonderful things about the product that we have developed, right? All our customers, bar none, say that they worked with a very good team, and the product that they took on board has given them business results which they wanted. Now, this is probably the most enduring thing in all of this journey that I think about. So I think the exit, we focus so much on the exit, but I think in startups, sometimes we forget that, because there's so much a buzz around raising investment and this and that, we must remember that at the basic heart of any company, is that you must build a product. I read this somewhere, so I'm repeating it, that you yourself will buy, right? I think that is really the key to it. If you get the fundamentals right and you work on building a solid technology product, or any product, I suppose, and you get customers who are able to say that they like this product, they value it, and that they respect the team that deployed this for them, then that helps a lot. So to be honest, the acquisition, I think, really happened because of the fact that we had such a strong product and customer references to go with it. As I said, Amplify Health is a technology company, a health insurtech company set up by AIA. It was set up sometime in 2022 with a view to developing health technology, health insurance technology innovations for AIA, but for obviously the broader ecosystem as well. And because AIA had such a strong relationship with us, AIA Singapore was one of our customers, and they had such good things that they experienced with our product. When Amplify Health was set up, one of the areas of innovation was health claims, right? Obviously, if you're talking about health insurance, then health claims is a key focus. And so they were also looking to expedite and accelerate their product offerings and development. And an acquisition was one way to accelerate, having in-house products that they can take to the AIA group, but also to market, obviously. So in that sense, the synergy was great because we had worked with AIA Singapore, but as part of, merging and, being acquired by Amplify Health, last year we took our solution to AIA Malaysia. And this year we've just started with AIA Thailand. So we're actually what we had achieved a lot in the Singapore market, but now through this merger and acquisition, we're able to see our technology go into the ASEAN region. And I believe there are discussions with AIA Hong Kong as well. So hopefully that will happen. So I'll feel very good that this technology can work at the regional level.
Wow. I mean, Shonali, congratulations. I mean, it really sounds like an excellent template, perhaps, that people can use as an example to follow and hopefully achieve. And I can wax lyrical or become anecdotal about the segment about building a product that you want, as long as you're not the only one buying it. But clearly that's not the case for you because you're expanding well. But on that note, Ronit, I'd love to hand it back to you, brother. I think there's much more in this conversation, perhaps, that you want to also uncover in the story, in the background with Shonali.
Sure. Actually, I want to slightly pause. And for the audience, we've talked about entrepreneurship and building companies. And I just want to focus a little bit more on the definitions of some of the things we've been talking about. So part of our mandate here is education. So we're going to be talking about what these terms actually mean. And apologies to the audience who already are completely au fait and familiar with this, but let's start. So Shonali, AI. Define AI for us.
Oh gosh.
Ooh, is that a trick question, Ronit?
Question so far. Look, there are many definitions, but you kind of got me there. If you go back to the traditional computer science view of artificial intelligence, or at least the test for a piece of software to be considered truly intelligent, or the Turing test, is that you are engaging with a piece of software on the other side, and you do not know that this is a software, that it's actually that it's a software, you think it's a human being. It is able to, sort of exhibit all those human level of generalized intelligence. Now, are we there yet? I think the answer is no. I'm absolutely certain we're not there yet. But I think that AI has made significant strides in the last 50, 60 years. It started, the term itself was coined in the 1950s. And there was about 40 years of what we call the AI winter or whatever, because though these ideas were there, the computational resources, the power needed to realize this, and the data, availability of data for these kind of technologies to become, practical in the real world, did not exist. So I think this last 10, 15 years has been just the explosion of what was incrementally built over the last 50 years, if you will, right? People had been chipping away, and many people had been, hundreds and thousands of researchers have been working on these technologies for decades. So that is really AI. But when we talk about AI today, there are broadly the traditional AI that most people think about is actually just one part of AI. That's machine learning or data science, where we are learning from data. The software algorithms are able to iteratively pass through the data and build models which can then do things like prediction, detect unusual patterns, detect common patterns, and so on, right? So it's able to work with data. But learning broadly, human beings learn very differently, right? We don't only learn from examples. Learning from data is learning from examples. We also learn from experience. I mean, a very simple story that I like to say is, let's say if you were learning how to drive a car, and you went over some kind of rock, you would learn very quickly that you don't, if you see a larger than normal rock, you would veer around it. You wouldn't have to do like 10,000 such runs to learn that you should not go through the rock, right, or go over the rock. So this is what I mean by there's still a long way to go where AI really learns the way we learn. But we are seeing some significant advances in more recent times. The whole chat GPT and the generalized Gen AI, the large language models that have emerged are demonstrating a kind of AI which we have not seen previously. In the past, we had very specific, like even the technology we built in smart claims was an AI that was trained specifically to process a health claim. It could do nothing else. That was all it could do. It was a machine that just did that. But now with this sort of large language models and AI that seems to be able to process natural language much better, we are seeing AI that can answer questions much better, as though you're like getting somebody who is reasonably intelligent to respond to you, even though it's just been trained. The other thing we're seeing is AI which can create content, right? It's generating text, it's generating images. So this is definitely it's a pivot point. We're seeing a big shift in the capabilities of AI with this technology. Does that give you an answer of some sort?
It's definitely a very good start. One thing you said right at the start of your explanation was from the 1950s to the 1990s or so.
Yeah.
You've had it's been waxing and waning. You call it AI winter. What changed in the 2000s and particularly in the 2010s?
Yeah. I think two things. One, the availability of data. Digital data, the availability of data which was structured, digitally captured in organizations, had reached a point where there was sufficient data for this technology to sort of really learn. AI does need a lot of data to learn from. That's what I meant. So there was a lot of data available by then because the database technology had matured and everything was now getting digital or already been digitized. So that was one. The second is computational capacity. The low cost, technologies like access to servers, putting together servers through cloud technologies, the AWS, the Azures, and all of those cloud players emerging and making computational resources much more affordable and accessible. I think these were the two things which actually led to, the productionizing of AI and machine learning in the 2010s and then onwards.
And for the audience, again, another definition. If you've been following AI recently, it's hard to escape the term LLM or large language models. And again, for the audience who are not familiar with AI, unpack that. I want to make the most of having an AI expert on this call. So what is LLM?
Okay. Right. So firstly, most AI, traditional AI, now pre-LLM, now when I say traditional AI, It's just the kind of AI machine learning models that we train on structured data. Most AI typically works on, those algorithms are good on structured data. So structured data means data which is in a database somewhere. So it's like, a bank would maintain customer records, would have transactions of people's credit cards, things like that. A retail store would have all the transactions of what people had bought. So everything's in a database. It says Shonali bought this on this date and this cost this much and so on. It's all already tabular structured. Now, that's the kind of data that typically, traditional machine learning technologies work very well on. With unstructured data in the past, we would normally have to convert the text into structured data. So there would be a layer where we would pre-process, or, sort of the text information, extract words, put it into structured sort of content to say, this is the name of a person, this is a relationship between these two entities, and things like that. So you extract some, sort of semantic structured information from the text, and then machine learning algorithms could work. But with these large language models, the models have been trained with such a lot of text that they are now able to, sort of process natural language or exhibit natural language capabilities, right? Because it's been trained like that. So in some ways, to simplify it or oversimplify it, it's almost like, because you've given it so much of data, this AI has taken a word and it has learned all the possible ways in which this word is used and how it's connected to other words and all of that. So now it's absorbed all of that. And this is why it's a very expensive process. It's almost like you've given it so much, it costs a lot of money and a lot of time to get these large language models learned. So we can't really, everybody can't go and learn it. It's almost like you'll have to take something which is pre-trained and then customize it now. Yeah.
Awesome. I want to bring Gaurav back in the conversation to talk about applications of AI in general in financial services. What works and what doesn't work? Gaurav, back to you.
Thanks so much, Ronit. We talk a lot about building AI, but as you've demonstrated from your own business, the application has to have a focus, it has to have a delivery, it has to have an impact. It has to delight the customer, whether it's an enterprise customer or an end user from a consumer point of view. It needs to have an applicable use. Where else do you think you're seeing the application of this technology that's, I would say, moving out of its infancy and more towards adoption? And we'll talk about a second, yin-yang piece of this. But the first part I really want to start off is, where else are you seeing this applied around you or next to you? Perhaps using the same baseline technology of collecting data, using this in different aspects of exactly what you just broken down from the academic point of view into application of financial services.
Yes. Look, within financial services, AI, I think financial service probably one of the sectors which does use AI significantly, right? But I think that now we are also seeing that AI is making its inroads into manufacturing. I think manufacturing is a very interesting space where people want to predict things like when machines will break down, how to maximize the production line.
Time between failure. Yeah.
Correct.
Time terminology as well. Yeah.
Exactly. All of that, predictive maintenance. So I think manufacturing, all healthcare is also another area where there's a real opportunity to, do things like study chronic diseases and see what are the early onset of symptoms and things like that. So there's a huge opportunity and people use it even for like pre-screening, right? Pass images of, let's say, retinas and so on to identify which are the ones that have to quickly move to the doctor for like diagnosis, and which ones look like they're too early stage, etc., etc. So I think that there is almost, applications are limitless and every domain wants to leverage AI at this point. But I think that the part where I think there's still maybe we've not fully cracked, and I think this is an important piece, is doing the AI as a standalone sort of exercise, right? Training a machine learning model, running some data through it, seeing what can be done, versus deploying it into like a pipeline where it's completely scalable. It's making decisions on its own autonomously. You're trusting it to do that, because that requires a lot more, I think, risk managed sort of process to get it there. And I think that is where there is still probably a lot more work that needs to happen across all the domains that I mentioned.
I think just capping what you've said here, because it's actually very significant, is when you're looking at the application of AI, it could be direct or indirect to financial services. So if it is for manufacturing to understand repairs, recovery, breakdown, predictability, that modeling for lending, insurance, other products, services, creditworthiness for businesses of different sizes, which perhaps didn't have that application. So it's a very, very, very direct and indirect application of AI to financial services. But you walked into the edge of what was going to be the start of my next question, and you touched on it, which is the risk. There's such a huge hurry and there's such a huge rush because of competition, because of people wanting to have an edge, that they've moved into this space of a dangerous territory now. Ronit, as somebody that has exposure to large amounts of data globally in terms of application of financial services and what else is happening there, gave the example in some of our earlier conversations about a certain Canadian Airlines bot, which promised customers certain pieces of certain perks, and apparently they're being told they have to pay out against that. So adoption of technology doesn't always yield the most positive results, right? In an extremely hyper competitive ecosystem. Yeah. So what are you seeing as the dangers in that? I know you talked about stopping, pausing, looking at the AI fundamental build out.
Yeah.
Is it not one size fits all, really?
No. I think that this is really the space where people must pay a lot of attention to. When you want to take AI and make it work in a sense where it is making decisions, not just telling you some insights and so on, right? Where it's on a day-to-day basis making decisions, be it even credit risk or something like that, where it's approving people's loans or declining, rejecting loan applications and things like that. So I think the thing to really focus on is to have a good process. I have 5 things that I think need to come into place when people do these kind of things.
This is excellent. Our listeners will be taking notes as we go through this. Let's go.
I think the first is that when we start an AI project, we must set up a group of people who are the key stakeholders, who understand the different kinds of risks that come from an AI decision being incorrect. So yeah, I would like to talk about the 5 things that I think are important and people should take into account when deploying AI solutions, right? So the first thing is to have an AI governance committee. And this is not a governance committee at the organizational level. I know large organizations have these things in place, but a project governance committee, which looks at and fully understands the impact of AI errors, because there are different kinds of errors that an engine can make, and the cost implications of those errors must be understood. So for instance, if we are running an AI engine for credit risk, then we must understand, or loan application approval, we must understand what is the cost to the organization when the AI engine makes a mistake and declines an application from someone who is actually eligible to receive this loan, and vice versa, right? And we must really understand the different kinds of cost implications for the errors that the AI makes. Once we know that, we can then say what is the risk that we can tolerate and what kind of errors cannot be tolerated. And so that then becomes the guiding principle for the functioning of the AI engine. So you say that, well, this kind of error I can tolerate up to this point, but this error I cannot tolerate at all. If I was to use the example of health claims, because it's a highly regulated space as well, we cannot have the AI engine ever turn down a health claim from someone who is eligible for the claim to be paid out. That's just not cannot be done. So therefore, we then say that if ever the AI engine declines a health claim, we will not auto-process that. It will always go to an assessor for review, right? So this is the kind of risk that we have to put in place, and it's very application specific. That's why I said you need a project level AI governance committee. The second thing is multiple levels of testing. Unlike traditional software, AI models must be back tested. Back tested is you train and you test it with some known data. You test it out of sample and out of time. So that's like a forward testing. And the last is you actually, once you deploy this technology, you must have a period of what we call parallel run, where the AI runs, but it's not making the final decision. Every decision is reviewed by a human. So you set the boundary, you know that, okay, I can set certain thresholds, and under these conditions, this AI can work. You have to actually figure that out in an application-specific context. The last two things is to have processes for how the AI engine gets retrained, what is the frequency, and so on, right? Because you must learn with new data, and all this must be documented. And the final point is, what kind of compliance frameworks does the AI actually need to adhere to? So in Singapore, in the financial services sector, we have to sort of comply with the Monetary Authority of Singapore's FEET principles and so on. So if there are other, compliance and regulatory frameworks that we have to comply with, it's very good to think about it right at the beginning and create all the documentation required for that at the outset. I mean, these are the few things that I think people need to put into place, and then you can risk manage this.
Wow. I don't know about you, Ronit, and but I'm sure of our listeners, I'm going to call this now, forget the 10 commandments. These are the new 5 commandments of Shonali. So I would say in our AI era, these are the 5 AI commandments. The next 5 will come out maybe in the next episode.
I don't know about commandments, recommendations maybe.
Too late. I've already coined it. Run it back to you. Thank you so much, Shonali. That's great insight. Great for our listeners.
So to just wrap up our podcast session today, I want to do a crystal ball gazing question, because obviously anyone who works in AI must get this question a lot, and it probably leads to, I don't know, some degree of frustration, fed upness, I don't know. But AI, compared to other technologies, seems to inspire greater hope and also greater fears.
Yes.
And I'd love to get your take on how you think our world actually changes. So zoom forward, it's year 2030. We're all sitting together in Singapore or Dubai or somewhere else in the world. How's the world actually changed? Has it changed more than what we're saying or prognosticating today, or less?
Okay, I don't want to be there at 2030, because then you'll play this back and tell me that I kind of got it wrong.
Oh,
but
in 6
nevertheless,
years' time, you'll be doing so many more exciting things, Shonali. You won't
We
care
have
about
we have
our
faith in you,
podcast.
Shonali. We have faith in you. Go on. You have your 5 commandments. We'll accelerate it to 10 soon. Don't worry, you got this.
The 5 commandments were learned after a lot of errors, okay? But now I'm taking, pie in the sky
Shonali
kind
just
of
suits
feeling. See, I think, like with all technologies, whenever there's something new that comes about, there's this great fear that jobs will be lost and so on. So I think this is one of the things that we do fear. But my view is that yes, some kind of jobs will have impact, but this technology will create a whole lot of new jobs as well, new kinds of work, and new economic activity will come out of this kind of technology. So I actually look at this with hope, not with pessimism. I also do not see that AI has reached a point where, it is going to, this is my view. I don't think it's really at the point that it's going to control our lives and take everything or take over everything. But it is a very powerful tool, and used in the right way, it can really help us to do a lot of things much better than we are today if we leverage it well. So I see it like that. I see it as a technology tool that can improve many things.
So AI fears probably overdone, like with all emerging
That's my take.
Is your take? Some real world use cases in financial services, including insurance and health, as we've just discussed, and the whole journey of entrepreneurship. It's a transformative one. It changes people, and it's hard to know exactly what you're going to learn when you start off, right? And I think when I speak to entrepreneurs, I get that sense of when a plan is as good as a plan, but when you get hit by reality, all these plans change. And
Yeah.
fascinating listening to you, Shonali, talk through your experience, starting in academia and to like pure science to building businesses and even exiting businesses. Thank you so much for joining us on
Thank you
Fubo.
so much for having me. Thanks.
And
Thank
to
you.
the
Thank you so much.
audience, if you liked our episode, you know what to do. Hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe. Fumo, Future of Money podcast, brought to you by CFT, sponsored by XBC Tech, supported by MENA FinTech Association. Goodbye, good night.